Do you want to know the single best way to reverse the big four killers? And do you want to know what the big four killers are? It's not exactly a fun conversation, but it is useful if you want to avoid the big four killers, which, trust me, you do. Hi, my name's Jesse. Welcome to the channel Open Source Owners, where we talk about what if humans had an owner's manual. So let's get into what they are. Again, I know it's no fun to talk about this, but every single one of you that's listening knows somebody, has lost somebody, is connected to somebody who has experienced these big four killers. So this is basically what's going to statistically be more likely to take out you and me and everybody that we love in the modern era. These are the big four killers of the modern world. And they are heart disease. You have a 23% risk of dying from heart disease, just as a modern human in America at this point. Diabetes, 25% risk of dying from complications of diabetes. Alzheimer's, 10% risk of getting that in the American adult population. This figure, 10% of getting Alzheimer's, is probably true across the Western countries or Western lifestyle-based countries, but it's definitely true of America. I believe these are American, USA, United States of America figures. Cancer, 40% risk of getting cancer and a 20% risk of dying from cancer. Now, again, everybody listening to this and watching this knows somebody or many people who have experienced these four things. And what's interesting about these four is that they are not genetically driven. Now, there can be genetic predispositions, but these are really driven by chronic disease, and therefore it is connected to lifestyle. The type of life that we're living, the pollution that we're living amongst, the foods that we're eating, the stress that we're living under psychically, etc. So we want to avoid those. The number one, the single best way to reverse those big four is basically what this video is about. And it is gonna revolve around food and eating. So let's talk about this specifically, because I find that not everybody realizes the profound connection and the profound relationship that we have with food. So poor eating results in 1,000 deaths each day from diabetes, stroke, heart disease, and the other 2 or 3 killers that were not mentioned in there. So that's a huge figure. 1,000 deaths per day is basically epidemic levels. We're not shutting down the world for this, but we should be. Or maybe not shutting down the world, but we should be driving attention to this and seeking societal and community-based change based on this fact, because we could actually improve this number dramatically. Now, of course, people die. That's what's going to happen to all of us, but we can avoid complicated deaths, long, slow declines in health in terms of our cognition and our physical functioning if we just address eating and food. That's why it's the single best. It's not the only thing that we can do, and nor should it be, but it is the single highest place in the watershed. It's the highest point of leverage we have to affect all the downstream effects and negative effects of things like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's. Now, so the very foundation of this is that food is information. It is not just calories. It is not just energy. If you eat a pound of broccoli and you eat a pound of gummy bears, you're going to have a high degree of different information cascading through the metabolic system of the body. One is going to actually drive the brain to function well and the gut to begin to produce neurotransmitters like serotonin. The other is going to do the opposite. It's going to create inflammation pathways and steal the capacity of the microbiome to create serotonin and dopamine. So food is information. It actually matters the type of thing that we're putting in our mouth, not just the calorie, or, it's not just about calories. So it literally tells your microbiome to turn on or off. And a better way to say that is to express genes. And this is called epigenetics, the expression of genes. It doesn't add a new gene to you or take away a new gene to you. It just allows genes to express what they are built to do. Food delivers us information about the outer environment, like as in, are there toxins, are there pathogens, is there deficiencies? And then the body responds within seconds by doing all manner of sophisticated activity in relationship to the information that was contained within the food that we eat. And because we eat food 3 to 4 times a day, it's the most profound connection we have in terms of information about whether the world is healthy or whether the world is not healthy, and therefore, in turn, whether we need to be healthy or not healthy. So what does the body do within seconds? Well, it makes more or different proteins depending on the quality of the information that the food is carrying. It tells cells that there is danger or not. That's called the cell danger response. It turns on inflammation pathways or not. And when you turn on inflammation pathways, you basically turn off the healthy creation of things like neurotransmitters and hormones and on an unhealthy alternative pathway. That's another video, but things like serotonin pathway, dopamine pathway really highlight this, because there's an inflammation version and then there's a healthy version. And then growing or shrinking certain bacterial populations, and those connote health in a cascading manner. And then millions of more actions. There's just a ton of things that go on every time we take a bite of food, depending on the information that is contained within the food. The single best way to reverse the big four killers, really, again, is food, because it can drive the brain to be more addictive by turning on the reward circuits related to dopamine and leading to addiction, even leading to depression, leading to anxiety, and many, many more things come out of just our relationship with our food. So here's a quote from Michael Moss, who wrote the great book, Salt, Sugar, Fat. Inevitably, the manufacturers of processed food argue that they have allowed us to become the people we want to be, fast and busy, no longer slaves to the stove. But in their hands, the salt, sugar, and fat that they have used to propel the societal transformation are not nutrients as much as weapons. Weapons they deploy, certainly, to defeat their competitors, but also to keep us coming back for more. And what he's getting at here is addiction. So salt, sugar, and fat have, through research, have been found to be understood as being addictive. The brain craves them, the microbiome begins to crave them, depending on what we put into our body regularly. And that can create addictions, just like addictions that we could have to drugs or alcohol, etc. So just like cocaine and heroin, sugar, fat, and salt, if designed well, become literally addictive foods that we need more and more of to get the same fix, complete with withdrawal symptoms. And sugar is the most obvious example, and that's what we'll go to next. So if we had to say, well, what should we do to address the food as information? I'm eating a lot. I'm eating a pound of gummy bears, but I'm not eating a pound of broccoli regularly, Jesse. What should I do? Well, there's a million diets, and they just become fads often. And I'm not interested in fads. I'm interested in the biology and actually treating our biology in a way that will bring positive effects by the way that we're actually just living. Blood sugar regulation is that sort of master key. It's the very first thing that we want to learn to master. And I'll recommend the book, The Blood Sugar Solution, The 10-Day Detox Diet by Dr. Mark Hyman, link below. Okay, so why? What's the deal with sugar? So high sugar diets particularly deplete B vitamins. So folic acid, we're talking about specifically here, which I think is B6. To metabolize the sugar, so we steal out folic acid to metabolize the sugar when we have high sugar diets, and that leaves less and less B vitamins and folic acid, specifically for serotonin production. It is a necessary component to produce proper amounts of serotonin. So what happens when you eat some sugar, and that, by the way, would include carbs, so like things like breads and bagels and rice and stuff like that, even white potatoes spike the blood sugar. And once you become tuned into blood sugar spiking and blood sugar regulation, you start to realize not only do you know the classes of foods that will spike blood sugar, but you feel it in your body once you get blood sugar more under control. So sugar, when the body converts a carbohydrate into a sugar, it spikes your natural blood sugar, which can lead directly to things like anxiety attacks. And this is something that I really highlight in the mental health space, is sometimes anxiety and depression is driven, the primary driver is the biological sphere, what we're eating, how we're exercising or moving or not, etc. And that happens because there's a crash in the blood sugar, right? So that can lead to shakiness, weakness, confusion, anxiety in the hypoglycemic or the low blood sugar state. So then the body produces adrenaline, right? As sort of a panic alarm, which leads to more feelings of anxiety. So you're getting a double hit here of anxiety and sort of this cascading inflammation of a blood sugar spike and then a rebalancing effect. But it's sort of a forceful mechanism on the body, producing a lot of adrenaline, a lot of blood sugar. And then too much sugar also depletes the brain of what's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which regulates things like anxiety, our likeliness of panic, and our ability to manage stress. BDNF is sometimes called miracle grow for the brain because it's a sort of a general system-wide upgrade to the brain. It allows the brain to produce myelin sheath better, which makes the communication faster. It allows the brain to have protective mechanisms, and it allows the brain to recover faster from things like stress or trauma. So more sugar also equals more insulin, and over time the insulin becomes less and less effective, and the insulin just tries to push the sugar into the cell so that the cell can use it to do all the things that the cell has to do. And when that becomes less and less effective, it's called insulin resistance. Everybody's probably heard of that, right? But what you might not know is insulin resistance also leads not only to type 2 diabetes, and even things like heart disease. In fact, all 4 of the big killers are pressurized or made worse by insulin resistance. So things like cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and heart disease are all negatively affected by insulin resistance or pre-diabetic high blood sugar spikes, and then sort of the insulin response that the body goes into. But also, insulin resistance leads to cognitive decline in things like Alzheimer's, which is sometimes called type 3 diabetes. I wonder if you've heard that. Now, from my understanding, it's not every type of Alzheimer's connects to this, but some are driven by basically blood sugar issues. Individuals with type 2 diabetes are 50% more likely to get dementia and / Alzheimer's than the general population. So this connection is really profound, and blood sugar and the blood sugar solution is really the first step in reversing the big 4 killers and all chronic diseases. So if you've never worked on blood sugar, I would highly recommend getting that book and going through that process. It's 10 days. It's a 10-day sort of detox diet, he calls it, but it's really all focused on blood sugar. So things in the literature that are understood to spike blood sugar are going to be removed just for that 10-day period, and then you can slowly but surely add the things that you really miss back into your diet, and you can just see how you react. Now, for myself, when I got my blood sugar more under control, what I recognized is I would have much less headaches. I never knew where these headaches were coming from, but it turned out that it was very related to blood sugar. Other people notice much less acne, much less digestion issues, much less brain fog or confusion, much more energy. I should also mention a lot of people lose about 10 extra pounds when they get on a blood sugar regulation diet. So if that motivates you, then that's another aspect of this that can be beneficial. For me, it's much more motivating to recognize that I'm going to be, by eating in this way, mostly, not all the time, you don't have to get dogmatic about it or rigid about it, but by eating in this way mostly, what I know is that my statistical likelihood of the big 4 killers is being reduced greatly. In fact, I may be free from them. We'll see, but it at least makes me feel like I am not in danger of randomly getting the big 4 killers, because there's not much random about it. It's all related to the body's metabolic processes and how healthy we are. If you'd like to know more, please download this free 60-page ebook that I wrote for you called The Owner's Manual Part 2. It's got a ton of information in it, including most of what we just talked about. Thanks for watching. That was the best way to reverse the big 4 killers. I hope you found that interesting. If you've had success with blood sugar or changing your diet and noticing beneficial health benefits like getting rid of headaches or reversing your type 2 diabetes or something like that, please comment in the links below. We want to know. If you like the video, do all the things that YouTube likes, hit the bell, subscribe, and all that sort of stuff. Most importantly, take this and use it in your life to benefit the longevity of your life and the quality of your life for the people that you love. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.